Imagine waking up at 2 in the morning. The room is dark, everything is quiet, and then you notice it. Your hand is completely numb, not just a little tingly, completely dead, like it doesn't belong to your body anymore. You shake it, you flex your fingers, you press it against the mattress hoping the feeling comes back, and slowly, it does. So you tell yourself it's nothing, just the way you were sleeping. You roll over, close your eyes, and try to forget about it. But here's the thing. That moment, that quiet, easy-to-ignore moment, may be one of the most important warning signs your body has ever sent you. And if you've been brushing it off, this video may genuinely change how you see your health from this point forward. Millions of people over the age of 55 experience this exact thing. Hands going numb in the middle of the night, fingers that tingle, burn, or feel like they're wrapped in thick cotton. Sometimes it's one hand, sometimes both. Sometimes it travels up the wrist, into the forearm, and you just can't figure out why. And most people do exactly what seems logical. They ignore it. They assume it's how they slept, they move on. But what if that numbness isn't about your sleeping position at all? What if it's your nervous system sending out a quiet distress signal, one that gets louder the longer it's ignored? That's exactly what we're going to walk through today. And I promise you, by the time we're done, you are going to understand your body in a way that most people your age never get the chance to. So stay with me, because some of what I'm going to share may genuinely surprise you. Before we go further, if you find this kind of information helpful, the kind that actually explains what's happening inside your body in plain, honest language, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Here at Dr. Silas Redford Wellness, we make it our mission to give you real, trustworthy health information that respects your intelligence and your time. We're grateful you're here. Now let's get into this. Let's start with something simple. Your hands go numb at night. Why does that matter so much? To understand that, you have to think about what your nerves actually do. They are not just wires carrying pain signals. They are living, breathing communication highways. Every sensation you feel, warmth, pressure, texture, cold, travels through nerve fibers so thin you couldn't see them without a microscope. And those nerves require two things above almost everything else: good circulation and consistent nutrition. When either of those is compromised, the nerves begin to suffer. And suffering nerves don't always scream. More often, they whisper, they tingle, they go quiet in patches. They send sensations that feel strange, but not alarming enough to act on. Until one day, they do something you can't ignore. Here's what most doctors don't take the time to explain during a 10-minute appointment. Nighttime numbness in the hands is often one of the earliest detectable signs of peripheral neuropathy. That's a condition where the peripheral nerves, the ones that branch out from your spinal cord into your arms, hands, legs, and feet, start to lose their ability to function properly. And the truly alarming part, it can begin years, sometimes even a decade, before most people receive a formal diagnosis. You could be living with early-stage nerve damage right now and have no idea, because the only sign is something as easy to dismiss as a numb hand in the middle of the night. Now there's a woman I want you to think about. Her name is Margaret. She's 69 years old, lives in Ohio, and spent most of her adult life working as a school teacher. Healthy diet, regular walks, no serious medical history. About 3 years before her diagnosis, she started noticing that her right hand would fall asleep almost every single night. She mentioned it to her husband. He said it was probably the mattress. She mentioned it to her daughter. Her daughter suggested a new pillow. She even brought it up briefly at a routine physical. And her doctor said her blood pressure looked fine and to come back if the numbness got worse or spread. It did get worse, and it did spread. By the time Margaret was diagnosed with diabetic peripheral neuropathy, a condition she didn't even know she was at risk for, because her blood sugar had been in that borderline pre-diabetic range for years, the nerve damage in her hands and feet was already moderate. She told the specialist something that stuck with him. She said, "I kept waiting for it to feel like a real emergency. I didn't realize the quiet warning was the emergency." Margaret's story is not rare. It is, heartbreakingly, extremely common. And what happened next in her treatment is something I want to come back to, because the steps she took to slow the progression contain some of the most practical advice I'll share today. But first, let's talk about what's actually happening inside your body when your hands go numb at night, because understanding the mechanism is the first step toward protecting yourself. Your peripheral nervous system is divided into 3 types of nerve fibers. There are motor nerves, which control your muscle movements. There are autonomic nerves, which handle the automatic functions like heart rate and digestion. And then there are sensory nerves, the ones responsible for all the feelings you experience through touch. When damage begins, it almost always starts with the smallest, most delicate fibers. These are the ones closest to the surface, the ones that detect light touch and temperature. And because they're so fine, they're extremely vulnerable to anything that restricts blood flow or depletes the nutrients they need to survive. Now here's where it gets important. There are several conditions, some of them extremely common in people over 55, that quietly accelerate this kind of nerve stress. And many people have more than one of these conditions at the same time without realizing how they interact. The first is blood sugar dysregulation. You don't need to have a diabetes diagnosis for elevated glucose to be harming your nerves. Prediabetes, which affects roughly 1 in 3 American adults, creates a biochemical environment that is genuinely hostile to nerve tissue. High blood sugar produces compounds called advanced glycation end products, which essentially coat and damage the delicate walls of the tiny blood vessels that feed your nerves. Without adequate blood flow, nerve fibers begin to starve. And the first place this starvation shows up? Typically in the fingers and toes, typically at night, when circulation naturally slows. Stay with me, because this next part is something most people in the medical system don't hear until the damage is already done. The second major contributor is nutritional deficiency, and I don't mean being malnourished in an obvious way. I mean the kind of quiet, gradual depletion that happens to so many people as they get older. As your digestive system ages, it becomes less efficient at absorbing certain vitamins. B12 is the big one. Vitamin B12 is absolutely essential for maintaining the protective sheath around your nerve fibers, a fatty coating called myelin. When B12 is low, that sheath thins. It becomes damaged. And damaged myelin means nerve signals travel slower, misfire, or stop getting through at all. This can cause exactly the kind of nighttime tingling and numbness millions of seniors experience. And here's what makes this especially painful. Many people who are B12 deficient have normal-looking diets. They eat meat, they eat eggs, they think they're getting enough. But after 60, the stomach produces less intrinsic factor, the protein that allows B12 to be absorbed. So the food is there. The nutrient just isn't getting in. If you're watching this and you haven't had your B12 levels checked recently, that one simple test could tell you something critically important about your nerve health right now. The third factor, and this one surprises people, is compression. Carpal tunnel syndrome is one of the most commonly underdiagnosed conditions in older adults. It happens when the median nerve, which runs through a narrow channel in your wrist, becomes compressed due to inflammation or structural changes in the tissue. And because it tends to worsen when the wrist is bent during sleep, the symptoms appear most intensely at night, tingling in the thumb, index, and middle finger. A deep aching that sometimes travels up the forearm. The feeling that shaking your hand out gives temporary relief. If this sounds familiar, it matters, because untreated carpal tunnel doesn't stay mild. It can progress to permanent nerve damage and muscle weakness if left unaddressed for too long. Now let's come back to Margaret, because what she did after her diagnosis carries a lesson that applies whether you've been diagnosed with something or whether you're still in that early warning phase where the signs are subtle. After her diagnosis, Margaret's specialist didn't just hand her medication and send her home. He worked with her on a comprehensive approach, and the results over 18 months were genuinely encouraging. The first thing they addressed was her blood sugar. Not through dramatic intervention, but through targeted dietary changes that reduced her post-meal glucose spikes. She cut out the foods that were sending her blood sugar on a roller coaster. The white bread at breakfast, the sweetened yogurt she thought was healthy, the fruit juice she'd been drinking every morning for 30 years. Instead, she focused on foods that stabilized her energy. More healthy fats, more fiber-rich vegetables, adequate protein at every meal. Within 90 days, her fasting glucose had dropped meaningfully. The second thing her specialist addressed was her B12 status. Her levels, when finally tested, were at the lower edge of the normal range, not technically deficient, but not where they needed to be for optimal nerve function. He started her on a methylcobalamin supplement, which is a form of B12 that some research suggests is more efficiently used by nerve tissue than the cheaper cyanocobalamin form found in most drugstore vitamins. Within 6 months, Margaret noticed something she hadn't expected. The nighttime numbness began to ease. Not disappear entirely. The moderate damage she already had was not going to fully reverse, but the frequency of episodes dropped significantly, and the burning sensation she'd started to feel in her feet began to quiet down. What doctors rarely explain is that nerve recovery is slow, but it is real. The nervous system has a capacity for healing that science continues to underestimate. The key is reducing the ongoing damage while simultaneously giving the nerves the nutrients and circulation they need to begin repairing. That combination, reducing harm and supporting healing at the same time, is where the real progress happens. Now let me share something that surprises almost everyone when they hear it. Exercise is one of the most powerful interventions for peripheral nerve health. Not intense exercise, not gym training or anything that feels unrealistic at 65 or 70. Simple, consistent physical movement, particularly anything that keeps the circulation flowing to the hands and feet, has been shown to measurably improve sensory nerve function in people with early to moderate neuropathy. Something as basic as a 20-minute daily walk increases blood flow to peripheral tissues, which directly feeds those starving nerve fibers. Some research has shown improvements in nerve conduction velocity, essentially how fast signals travel through the nerves, after just 12 weeks of consistent moderate exercise in previously sedentary older adults. That is remarkable, and it's something you can start doing today without a prescription. There's also the role of inflammation, a word you've probably heard a lot but may not fully appreciate in this context. Chronic low-grade inflammation is now understood to be a major driver of nerve damage in older adults. And the things that fuel that inflammation are largely the same things that damage nerves through other pathways. High blood sugar feeds inflammation, poor sleep drives it, a diet heavy in processed foods and refined oils sustains it, even unmanaged psychological stress, the kind that comes from years of worry or loneliness, can chronically elevate inflammatory markers in the blood. This is not about blame. It's about understanding that your body is a system. And when one part of that system is under stress, the ripple effects reach further than most people expect. What you eat matters enormously for nerve health, and I want to be specific about this because general advice like eat healthy doesn't actually help anyone. The nutrients most directly linked to peripheral nerve function and protection are B vitamins, particularly B1, B6, and B12. Alpha-lipoic acid, a powerful antioxidant found in small amounts in spinach, broccoli, and organ meats, has been studied extensively for its ability to reduce oxidative stress in nerve tissue and improve symptoms of neuropathy. Omega-3 fatty acids, found in fatty fish like salmon and sardines, support the structural integrity of nerve cell membranes. Magnesium plays a role in nerve signal transmission and is frequently low in older adults due to a combination of reduced dietary intake and increased urinary excretion. And vitamin D, which your skin makes less efficiently as you age, is increasingly being linked to nerve function and pain modulation. None of these are exotic. None require a trip to a specialist or an expensive treatment plan. They are nutrients. And for many people, simply ensuring adequate levels of these specific nutrients through food and where necessary through supplementation has produced real, measurable improvements in nerve-related symptoms. I want to address something here that I think is important. There is a tendency in our culture, and I see this particularly in people who've been through a lot of life, to minimize what's happening in your own body. To say things like, "I'm just getting older," or "this is probably nothing," or "I don't want to bother the doctor with something like this." I understand that tendency, but I want to gently push back on it today, because your body is communicating with you. That numbness at night is a language, and dismissing it because it doesn't feel urgent enough is, in many cases, the single most costly mistake a person makes for their long-term health. Margaret told her specialist that if she had taken that numb hand seriously 3 years earlier, had pushed for testing, had made the dietary changes, had known about her borderline blood sugar, she believes the trajectory of her nerve health would have been dramatically different. She's not bitter about it. She's actually extraordinarily proactive now, but she wants other people to know what she wishes she had known, and that is why stories like hers matter. That is why you're watching this today. That is why this community exists. Because the truth is that most of the things that protect nerve health are not complicated. They are consistent, they are daily, and they are accessible to almost anyone who understands why they matter. So let me bring this home in a way that I hope stays with you. If you've been waking up at night with numb or tingling hands, please don't wait. Talk to your doctor. Ask specifically about a complete B vitamin panel, a fasting glucose test, and an evaluation for carpal tunnel if your symptoms match. If you haven't been moving your body regularly, start with a walk tomorrow morning. If your diet is heavy on processed foods, refined carbohydrates, or sweetened beverages, making even a 10% shift toward whole foods will begin to reduce the inflammatory burden on your nervous system. If you're taking a multivitamin, check whether it contains methylcobalamin rather than cyanocobalamin. These are small things, but small things done consistently are what actually change health outcomes, not dramatic interventions, not fear. Consistent, informed action. Your nerves are not beyond hope. Even with existing damage, the body's capacity for adaptation and partial repair is real and documented. People in their 60s, 70s, and 80s have improved their nerve function, reduced their symptoms, and regained quality of life through exactly the kinds of changes we've talked about today. It is not too late, but it does require you to take what your body is telling you seriously, starting now. You have the right to understand what's happening inside you. You have the right to ask questions, to push for answers, and to make informed choices about your own health. And you have the right to feel better than you do right now. If this video helped you see your nighttime numbness in a new light, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you experienced this? Did you know what it might mean? Your story might be exactly what someone else in this community needs to hear today. And if you have a friend or family member who's been mentioning numb or tingling hands and brushing it off, please share this video with them. It might be the nudge they need to finally take it seriously. That one conversation, that one shared video could genuinely make a difference in someone's health. Thank you for spending this time here. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.